Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Long Shot Podcast, brought to you by 342 Productions, as always. And I'm your host, Duncan Robinson, here with Davis Reed in Miami. Davis, how we doing?
Still here, man. I'm great.
Davis is still here. I took an extended weekend trip to Boston. Davis stayed down here in the Sunshine State, held it down, and went back into enemy territory in some respects. Also, kind of generally where I'm from. So some friendly faces up there as well. But it was a successful trip, I would say.
I enjoyed my time down here, just kind of holding the fort down. But yeah, you guys, I would say, probably had a better couple of days than I did. And I had a good couple of days.
Well, I think we're all in this together in some respects. So I think we all had a good little stretch. But yeah, we went up there. We played Sunday and Tuesday. For myself, somewhat selfishly, it was a fantastic trip because we had a day game Sunday, which is pretty unique. And what was particularly unique is we stayed over, obviously, because we also played Tuesday, and I got to spend Mother's Day with my beloved mother.
Nothing more you can ask for.
Yeah, especially after a win in the city that I kind of grew up in or around, I should say. But yeah, got to have a nice little family gathering. Outside, socially distanced, of course, but it was enjoyable nonetheless.
I've noticed a couple things. One, like we were at breakfast this morning and someone says they're from Boston. You're like, oh, I'm also from Boston, which is not true. But yeah, you do kind of claim that city. So I'm sure it's nice to always be back.
Well, I think it's important to mention it's not like the Midwest where you're from. It's not like Florida. All the states up there in New England, they're all kind of jumbled together. Where I grew up in New Hampshire, for some reason people kind of get it lost. They think I'm from Maine. I was born in Maine, but grew up in New Hampshire. Where I'm from in New Hampshire is a unique area. So this is a little geography lesson for all of you at home.
Great.
New Hampshire has about 12 miles of coastline, okay? Tucked right there in between southern Maine and kind of like North Shore, Massachusetts. Okay. There's 12 miles of coastline. I grew up in that area. So it's uniquely positioned to where I am legitimately 10 minutes from Maine. I am 15 minutes, 20 minutes from Massachusetts, about 45 minutes from Boston. So growing up in New Hampshire, I played a lot of my basketball based out of Boston. AAU was out of Boston. A lot of the camps were out of Boston. There are a lot of colleges in Boston, that I would go down and visit or play pickup at, whatever. So naturally, when I would move outside of New England, it became, oh, where are you from? It became easier to identify, oh, I'm from Boston. Because people hear New Hampshire, I mean, honestly, I don't know what they think. I think probably a combination of fields and cows. I don't know.
Really? I think I get the cows more for Kansas. I don't know if I associate cows with New Hampshire.
Well, maybe just like maybe White Mountains. I don't know. Like some like it's basically a kind of extended suburb of Boston. Sure. Is okay, how fine. I've kind of always identified it. And like I said, I just always found it easier whenever I would be in the Midwest or down here in Florida where people don't really know, it gets tricky up there. I'm trying to let people off the hook in some respects. Right. If I give them the general area of Boston, it's easier to kind of wrap your minds around that. This is now a geographical tangent, but I think
this is important.
I think it needed to be said.
I agree.
Because I get a lot of shit, honestly, because I say, oh, I'm actually, I'm from Boston. And then I'm like, well, I'm actually from New Hampshire. And people are always like, all right, well, where are you actually from, guy? Like, what's going on here? You're trying to claim all these different places. No, it's actually, I'm just trying to make it a little bit easier for you.
Hardly home, but always repping.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, fine. Fair enough. Well, so you're in we'll just call it your home city just for ease.
Yeah, home air. I mean, at least from this standpoint, the closest city to identify with from like a professional sports standpoint was certainly Boston.
Yeah, right.
That's why they're called the New England Patriots. They're not called the Boston. Well, they were once upon a time called the Boston Patriots. But anyways, it was great for me. Like I said, grew up in the area. It was my first time winning in the Boston Garden, TD Garden, whatever they call it these days. So a little bit, a little bit more emotion, some nostalgia tied in with some memories and, all that good stuff.
Your first win in the Garden?
It was my first, yeah.
Really?
I mean, we've beaten the Celtics before.
Right. In a playoff series.
As someone maybe remember. But that was actually played, if you weren't aware, that was at a neutral site in Orlando.
No way.
In the bubble, yeah.
What?
So it was my first time winning at home in front of my family. Had a nice moment. I gave my brother my jersey after the game, which was kind of cool. Kind of felt like the man, like went up in the stands.
Yeah,
first time ever doing
swap.
that. Had never given away a jersey. But that one felt right.
Did you get a photo op?
We didn't get a photo op.
Oh, come on. That's the whole point of the jersey swap.
Yeah, if anyone's out there that happened to take a picture of that moment and wants to send it in, it would be appreciated because it was a fun one. But yeah.
It was, so we'll try to get back on the rails here. Yeah, it was a great week for you guys. Clinch a playoff spot. So no more playing game for the Miami Heat. Not something you need to worry about.
Yeah, which is interesting. I actually want to unpack this a little bit.
Let's do it.
It's interesting how your perspective of the play-in changes when you realize you are no longer going to be a part of it.
I believe that.
And I want to, on record, acknowledge how fair weather this sounds. But, of course, I mean, there's been pretty public pushback from players on the play-in. And we were actually talking about this prior to recording this, and there are some parts of it that I think need some working. I think that in some cases, it just doesn't really make sense. But from a fan perspective, from an engagement perspective, from the perspective of making these games interesting, it's kind of serving its purpose.
I think so.
I mean, it's totally adding a different dynamic to the playoff picture, which I think, let alone, whether you want to say it's good or bad, it's certainly adding more coverage and just like creating some different storylines.
Yeah, well, I think from a fan's perspective, it's been awesome. Like, I watched the Lakers-Knicks game last night.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a playoff game now because there are so many implications for those two teams, but also for you guys. Right? Like, everyone's so invested in these last 3-4 games that it's awesome from a fan's perspective. I think the one issue that you come across is just the discrepancy between, like we were talking about this at breakfast, a 7 seed who might be 8 games or 6 games or whatever ahead of a 10 seed. Right. There's a world where the 7 seed misses the playoffs and the 10 seed makes it. So it's almost like it feels like there should maybe be some sort of caveat of like you have to be within a certain amount of games. That's the only potential issue I see. But from a fan perspective, it's so entertaining, or at least it has been.
It sounds like you should write a formal letter to Adam Silver.
Maybe I'll do that. Yeah.
It seems like you have a pretty convincing argument.
It's almost like you have to be within a certain amount of games, right? So it's like if the 9 seed is 5 games ahead of the 10 seed, like you don't deserve to play.
There should be a cutoff there.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, from an entertainment standpoint, we'll just use the West, for example, the opportunity for Steph and LeBron to be going head-to-head in a play-in situation for a chance at the 7 seed, I mean, that's as close to must-see TV as I think you can get.
For sure.
Like win and you're in situation. Not to mention, if you lose, then all of a sudden you're on the brink of missing the playoffs entirely. And I think that's where your point is coming in of, okay, if you've earned, quote unquote, earned the 7 seed, and then all of a sudden, you're the Lakers and Steph goes for 60 in some crazy performance. Right. And then now you're on the brink of missing the playoffs altogether to a team that it might be below 500. That I totally see the pushback there of like, that's kind of bullshit.
Also, just a giant caveat that you're so biased.
Now
that you're out of the plane.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was like totally on the bandwagon of like, this is garbage. This is whatever. But like, now that we've kind of, like, once again, I fully openly acknowledge my biases, how fair weather I may sound. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to shy away from it.
Which is good. I mean, I think I appreciate that. Just as your podcast co-host, I appreciate you not shying away from it. I want to get back to the Boston sweep. I, again, had no idea that this was your first win in Boston. But
I got 2 of them.
You got 2 of them.
Yeah. And
I wanted to ask you, there's got to be, we just talked about how it's your home city. There's got to be a little extra motivation for you back there. You looked. I gotta. This podcast is just us complimenting each other, but I gotta say, I thought last night particularly. So the second game of that series was maybe your best game of the year.
Wow.
Maybe not statistically. Like if you look at the box score, that it doesn't tell the whole story.
Interesting.
But you looked so confident. You looked so aggressive. In that third quarter, Jimmy went out at halftime, didn't come back and start the third quarter. So I think there was a kind of a collective gasp from Heat fans of like, oh no, this is a must win and Jimmy's gone. And you sort of took over that third quarter. Maybe I'm giving you too much credit, but you had 13
Probably
in the
a little
quarter.
too much.
You were doing it in a variety of ways. You got to the line. You drove, had some assists. Like
I love how a variety of ways means 1 2-point field goal.
No. You got to the line. There was a drive and kick to Bam. Like typically, if you're having a good game, a lot of the time that means you're shooting it well. But it was more than that. I thought it was one of your best games defensively. So I don't know. It was fun to watch.
Appreciate that.
I don't know how much of that is you being back in Boston.
Yeah.
Or just things kind of coming together.
I think it's a combination of things. Obviously, that was a huge game for us. We knew the implications coming in of that. If we're able to get that one, then we clinch, avoid the play-in, which is something that we had talked about. There's also the aspect and component of being back in Boston. Had a lot of people at the game, which of course always adds, whether you want to admit it or not, I think there's definitely a psychological or subconscious, just kind of boost you get from being in that setting. And like I said, I grew up watching the Celtics. So every opportunity that I get to play those guys is kind of surreal, particularly in their building, just because, I remember going to a couple Celtics games when I was younger. I think actually we went to a Celtics game.
We did.
At one point. So yeah, for sure. There's definitely that component to it as well. But, the other side of it too is like you said, Jimmy goes down. The thing that I was particularly proud of our group is, it's no surprise that we're a Jimmy and Bam centric team. A lot of our offense runs through them. Obviously, a lot of our defense is based off of their versatility and their ability to do different things. The thing that I was proud of was that it was just a group of us kind of rallying around an opportunity and rising to the occasion. I think you saw Bam get super aggressive and just kind of command the ball, play make, attack the rim, put pressure on the rim. You saw Tyler, who had played great in the first half, but I thought just really elevated his play and kind of commanded the game in the second and hit a variety of huge shots and kind of kept us afloat there for a little while. Goran hit a couple massive threes right in that stretch. NBA games are finicky in that, and they're fragile in that, you get it to 14 or 17, a 6-0 run either way, like totally changes the game.
Yeah.
And they had a couple stretches where it looked like they were going to go on a run in that early fourth quarter. And Goran hit, I think, 3 huge,
tough ones,
crazy ones, bombs, tightly contested. And, it just kind of cuts into their run and keeps that lead at 14, 15, and away from like getting down into single digits. So I think it was a variety of guys really stepping up. Kendrick is like always just kind of the unsung hero, making timely plays, big plays. Trevor, exactly that as well. What he does for us is like just super underappreciated, I think, in my opinion. Just guards and plays with such an IQ, and just kind of has that like veteran savvy, like knows how to win, and just doesn't get rattled. Andre is like more of the same. We say this internally, but Andre legitimately might be the easiest guy to play with in the NBA. Like the way he, defensively, he's always going to be in the right spots, helping guys. Offensively, he's so unselfish. He sees plays before they happen. He'll have, and they're not always assists, but like just these last 2 games, there are like 4 or 5 examples of him catching the ball in like a short roll situation. To kind of explain it, 2 go on the ball, Andre gets like a pocket bounce pass, and then he's playing with an advantage on the backside. those are challenging plays because they happen really fast. And if you miss that moment of a guy being open and the defense scrambles, your advantage can kind of be lost. Andre has this ridiculous ability to read everything quickly, but never be in a rush. So he almost like manipulates and predicts how the defense is going to like pre-rotate and always finds that open man. And once again, those are like those little plays that they don't always end up being assists or they don't always end up being threes, but it's just as a player, when you're open and somebody like finds you when it's like kind of a difficult situation to do it, it keeps you in rhythm. It's like a rewarding feeling to like, okay, I was open and I got the ball. Those little stuff like that go a long way. So I totally took this question and just ran all these different directions.
I love it.
But it's a combination, I think, it's particularly the continuity we've kind of developed on offense of a variety of pieces and players kind of coming together.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Andre, he made a living on that in Golden State.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's what he did.
Yeah.
Because you had to do something with Steph on those pick and rolls, and then Andre or Draymond or somebody has all.
Yes.
But no, for the record, I love you going on tangents. You can keep doing that. Another question about the Boston series. What's your kind of like team approach going into that game? Like, what's that huddle look like? I know D Wade asked Bam this in the post-game interview last night, but I do that. It goes back to the play-in games, right? Like these last few games of the season are always important because they have seeding implications, but it felt like this one had a little extra because it was, okay, if we win, we're out of the play-in. Are you guys, now that you've had playoff experience, is that game last night a playoff atmosphere, a playoff game?
I mean, it definitely had a playoff feel between the kind of physicality, the pace, and just kind of the magnitude of every possession. I haven't played in like a packed arena playoff atmosphere. Obviously, last year was my first time in the playoffs, and it was in the bubble. And even yesterday, I think they bumped it up to like 25% capacity. So it's not like this raucous playoff vibe, but in terms of the actual gameplay, absolutely. I think that the thing that it kind of differentiates itself, at least in what I've experienced, granted, take it with a grain of salt, I've had one playoff experience, but the magnitude of possessions goes way up. And we talk about this. There are these like little skirmishes throughout a game, and there might be 6 or 7 of them throughout a game. It's the end of a quarter or the start of a quarter or a pivotal 3-minute stretch, in the middle of the third, that oftentimes decide the game. And you're not going to win all of them, but it really comes down to, can you win more than the other team? And that, because people say it's kind of like cliche, but like the NBA is kind of a game of runs, but it is, in that teams kind of get it going, and then it's how do you mitigate that? How do you then respond to that? If you build up a lead, teams are really good. It's hard to get a lead and then just hold it throughout the entire game. I think you've seen that, particularly in these last two. That's a real challenge. So it becomes, a lot of times, is how do you manage these little moments? And I think in playoff settings, it's just magnified more and more. And those little skirmishes become more and more pivotal. So it had that feeling for sure. And also it's such a unique situation in that you never play, before this year, you don't play teams twice back to back, let alone the team that you're playing twice back to back being the team that you're right there with in terms of playoff picture. Right. So once we got the first one, there's kind of been a conversation kind of league wide about how difficult it is to beat a team twice in these types of settings. The majority of those games are split statistically throughout this year. It's, regardless of record and what happens in game one. So we knew the second one was going to be really challenging, but we kind of just treated it like a playoff prep. It almost didn't really need to get talked about, the magnitude of the game. Like, we all kind of understood, it is what it is. But instead the focus just becomes, okay, how do we really lock in on the details of trying to win, and scheme and game plan? And, like anything, it's not going to be perfect, because things change throughout the course of a game, but it just becomes, how can you work to be your best version?
Makes sense.
So Dave, let me paint a picture for you. You start your own online store. You're finally doing what you love. You're away from the rat race of a 9 to 5. You're selling products people want and care about. And now all of a sudden, orders are coming in fast. Now comes the hard part, shipping those products out. Luckily, ShipStation makes it easy. With ShipStation, it's simple to import, manage, and ship your orders out fast for a lot less money. It's no wonder ShipStation is the #1 shipping software for e-commerce sellers, with more 5-star reviews than anyone else in the game. You can import orders from any sales channel, ship with any carrier using their deeply discounted rates, and automate just about any shipping task. You spend a lot less time on shipping and a lot more time getting to grow your business.
That's right. No matter where you're selling, Amazon, Etsy, your own website, ShipStation funnels all your orders into one simple interface that you can manage from anywhere, even your cell phone. You'll get access to amazing discounts with major carriers, including UPS, FedEx, and USPS. Easily compare carriers and choose the best solution every time. With ShipStation, small businesses can now access the same rates usually reserved for Fortune 500 companies without the contracts or commitments.
It's really simple. Ship more in less time. And we got a code for you. Use our code LONGSHOT. That's one word, LONGSHOT, to get a 60-day free trial. That's 60 days free trial. That's 2 months free of no hassle, stress-free shipping. Just go to ShipStation.com. Click on the microphone at the top of the page and type in LONGSHOT. That's ShipStation.com. Enter offer code LONGSHOT. Make ship happen. Lots of things can make your workouts hard. You know, maybe throw on a little extra resistance, maybe some more weight, turn the treadmill up to double speed, or maybe you're just doing an extra mile. But here's the thing, Dave, your socks shouldn't. That's why Bombas performance socks are built to be nothing but comfortable and supportive.
Bombas performance socks have taken all of the amazing innovations that make Bombas the most comfortable socks you've ever worn and added their special Hex Tech performance technology. Bombas performance socks are stitched with special moisture wicking yarn and temperature regulating vents that allow cool airflow in and prevent overheating.
They come with a pillow-like tab to save you from blisters, stay-up technology, and special arch-hugging system. And of course, an extra layer of cushiony comfort on the bottom for the perfect amount of support. And like their socks, for every pair of Bombas performance socks you buy, they donate a pair to someone in need. They've donated over 45 million pairs so far. They really do have the best quality, and you can do it in good conscience. It's the best of both worlds.
I'm actually wearing some Bombas right now.
Wow. Look at you. And they're stylish. I'm looking at them right here. So yeah, go to bombas.com/longshot today and get 20% off your first order. That's Bombas, BOMBAS, bombas.com/longshot for 20% off. Bombas.com/longshot.
You talk about this list of skirmishes. Can we add the Marcus Smart tumble to the list of skirmishes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a different type of skirmish. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I've been hit up quite a bit about this one. You know, I'll start with this. Marcus plays really hard. I think that I don't think Marcus is like dirty. I think that he plays really hard. He's physical, and I have a lot of respect for him also. I haven't even actually seen the replay. What it felt like was that he tripped me up. Once again, I don't think it was like a dirty play, but it was like two people kind of basically fighting for positioning on the wing. And we just kind of got tripped up. What ensued from there was me kind of acknowledging that he tripped me up.
Okay.
And kind of putting that in plain sight.
What does kind of acknowledging entail?
I don't know. It wasn't anything outlandish. I think I said like, all right, so that's what we're on. Like that's what we're doing. You know, I felt like it was kind of an opportunity for him to kind of like be physical with me in that moment. And that's something I've kind of seen, you know, for example, from game 1 to 2 in this sense. I think they put Fournier on me in game 1, and then right from the start of game 2, it was obvious that they were making an adjustment, and Smart guarded me right from the start of the game too. And, you know, an adjustment that I've seen a lot this year is exactly that, guys getting more physical and trying to, you know, take me out of comfort, whatever. So I felt like that was him kind of taking advantage, which once again isn't a bad thing. It's a legitimate strategy. I felt like that moment was kind of an example of him kind of leaning into that. Now I just, once again, I wanted to acknowledge that I felt like that. I was like, all right, so that's what we're on. So that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, just
right?
a question.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And he actually, this is where I was surprised. He actually felt like it was my wrongdoing and my fault, which of course I disagree with. I mean, you can watch the footage and make a decision for yourself.
We'll probably pull it up.
Yeah, we can pull it up. Once again, I think there's some, like any altercation, there's always going to be some gray area.
Sure.
You know, both sides could be argued. But actually, the funny thing about it is like, it wasn't like some malicious back and forth cursing at each other. Like, I think he legitimately like wanted to talk to me, and I actually legitimately wanted to talk to him too. So we were in this weird situation of like the refs and everybody separating us, but it was like actually like, no, like let's talk about it. Like what? Because I was like, dude, like what are we on? Like what was that? And he was actually feeling the same type of way towards me, which I'm not raising my hand and saying I'm entirely innocent here either. But you know, I had an opportunity to get to the line. I knew we were in the bonus. I got to capitalize. It was an interesting little, you know, skirmish, altercation, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it was also just kind of like a metaphor, maybe, I guess, for the game as a whole, of just like, that's what you're going to get in those meaningful games. You know, little moments like that.
Yeah. So first of all, if you guys haven't seen the clip, it's not that, like you said, it wasn't that serious.
Oh no,
you're making it sound like you guys fought or something. Like, really, you just got tangled and fell. And I think in those situations, like he's blaming you and you're blaming him, I think it's kind of like tie goes to the runner in baseball. You know what I mean? Like if you're on offense and you get tangled up and knocked down, it's probably going to be a foul on the defender. So that's really all it was. And then it was funny from watching on TV. It seemed like you said something like, "What are we on?" And then he was kind of like, "I just want to talk. I just want to talk." The ref's holding him back. "I just want to talk." So it seemed as friendly as a two guys getting separated can be.
Yeah. I think it was relatively cordial. I don't think there was like any malcontent